Hello everybody, I'm Nora and I am finishing up a quilt. I started this quilt for nobody in particular. I started making it because I wanted to try out making these kind of wonky trees, and here I'll show you the quilt. I wanted to make these wonky trees and I just started making them and I kind of couldn't stop. So I just turned it into this kind of baby-sized quilt, which I'm pretty happy with. Here it is. And the back is on. I just kind of did this blue plaid backing. And so I put the front to the middle with the backing using some adhesive spray, and then I did some stitch in the ditch quilting around each block. So I only have one more step, and I thought maybe we would do that last step together. I have to bind the quilt. So the first step of binding the quilt is you have to measure the entire diameter of your quilt and then add 12 inches. And that's how long your binding strip is going to be. So here's my binding strip. I have 3 pieces that I will need to sew together to make the entire diameter plus 12 inches of my quilt. Now the width of your fabric is going to be 2.5 inches. So I've cut my strips. You go ahead and cut yours, and then I'll show you how to connect them using a diagonal seam. Now, the method that we are going to use to attach our binding to our quilt, it is the method that most of these show quilts that you see use, and it's super easy. So it's easy, it's professional, and quick. So let's go ahead and do the first step. So cut your strips, and we'll sew them together using the diagonal seam. Let's go. So to attach your strips of fabric using a diagonal seam, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the end of one strip and the end of another strip, and you're gonna put them right sides together. So this is the right side of the fabric, and the back is the wrong side of the fabric. So you're gonna put right sides together, and your underneath fabric, your bottom fabric, is going to be horizontal, and your top fabric is going to be straight down. You're gonna wanna sew a diagonal line. So from the top corner here all the way to the bottom corner, you're gonna sew a diagonal. Now what might be helpful is to take a ruler and a pencil and to draw that diagonal line, and then you can just sew right on the diagonal. I'm not gonna do it, I'm just gonna wing it. I'm gonna live on the edge. Now if you're not sure you have these facing correctly, you can peel up this part and see, does this look like it's gonna be a line? Yes, it does. So you can kind of peek and see if you're doing it right. And I'm gonna overlap a little bit. You see my top fabric is coming above this line a little bit, and my bottom fabric is coming over a little bit. And I can trim those later, but I'm still just gonna go right on the diagonal. I've sewed the diagonal line. It's hard to see because I sewed with white thread, but I'm going to cut right above the line that I just sewed. So first I'm going to trim off my edges here, and then I'm going to trim right above the line. And I have 2 little scrap pieces, which you know is very exciting for me. And once you've snipped that off, you can open it up and you see a nice strip. You'll want to press this seam to one side or the other. So I've now attached both of my seams, so I have enough length here to get all the way around my quilt plus 12 inches. So next step, I'm taking this over to the ironing board. I'm going to fold the top to the bottom and press the whole length of your fabric. Here's my bias strip folded in half. I'm going to find the end right here. I'm going to leave myself about an 8 to 10 inch tail. I'm going to put the rough edges, so as you can see if you open this up, when you fold it over, the crease is kind of the solid edge, and then the top part is your raw edge. So you're going to put raw edge to raw edge on your quilt. Don't start too close to a corner, okay? So I have raw edge to raw edge, and I'm going to sew on my sewing machine 1/4 until we get to a corner, and then once we get to the corner, I'll show you the next step. I'll show you how to do a corner. So here I am coming right up to my corner. I'm going to sew until about 1/4 of an inch before my corner, back stitch, and then I'm going to cut my thread and take this off the sewing machine. Next, I'm going to turn my quilt so that the part I haven't sewn yet is facing down. I'm going to fold my binding strip so that it goes straight up and down. So you'll notice that the binding strip goes continually in one line with the side of the quilt in a line. And then you have this diagonal fold right here. Then you're just going to hold that fold there with your thumb and flip down the binding so that now it's a straight edge against the side of your quilt. Put it back under your machine and continue sewing down. Let's get another angle at that same thing. Here I am coming upon a corner. I'm going to stop sewing about 1/4 inch away from the edge. Back stitch. Cut my thread. I'm going to turn my quilt so that the side I have not sewn yet is vertical. I'm going to take my binding strip and fold it up so that I have a diagonal and the side, the raw edge of the binding strip is right in line with the edge of the quilt, and then fold it over. Then you're going to put it right back under the machine and keep going. So I sewed all the way, leaving myself a gap here. I have my tail. So what you're going to do next is overlap your pieces by 2.5 inches. And that is because that is how wide our binding strip was to begin with. Our binding strip was 2.5 inches wide, and so now we are going to overlap our binding strip by 2.5 inches. So I'm going to mark that with a pencil. And then the scary part, I'm going to cut. Here we are with our two tails that have been overlapped by 2.5 inches. You open up your fabric on the right and you turn it so that the edge is facing up. So I'll show that again. You open up your fabric and you turn it so that the edge is facing up. Then you just open up the left-hand side and leave it pointing in the direction that it's already going. So towards the other strip, the other side of the strip. Then you're going to put the right sides together, just like that, okay? So I'm gonna show one more time because this is a little tricky. It's actually not that hard once you know how to do it. Open it up and rotate it up. Open it up and leave it the direction it's going. Then slide the two together. Make as much of a diagonal line as you can. Then take it to your machine and sew. You can see I sewed on that diagonal, and it's going to feel twisty. It's going to feel like you messed something up, that you twisted it, but it's fine. Then you just pull it, and look. It's exactly like the rest. So now you just need to trim the edge off. Now you just have this little part that you haven't sewed down yet. So go ahead and sew this with the raw edges together, just like you did the rest of the quilt. And then you'll be ready to, here I'll show you a part that's already been sewn. So here's the raw edges that have been sewn. Flip over the strip to the back. And then you're going to stitch in the ditch right along here, which will catch the backing. And because you made these nice mitered corners, when you flip them over and sew them down, they'll be nice and crisp and clean. So again, you're just going to all the way around, flip this to the back, stitch in the ditch, even the corners, you'll just keep going, flip this around, stitch in the ditch,
all the way around, and then your quilt's done.
I just finished my quilt, and I did want to mention that I had such a good time making these trees for the quilt that I would like to make some trees with you all. So I'm thinking maybe doing some more kind of bold, royal colored trees and turning them into a project. So look for that in the next couple of months. That will be fun. And this quilt is finished. I just need to give it a nice iron, trim some of the little threads off, and then it's good to go. I am thrilled to be finished with this quilt. I had a great time making it. There are few things better in life than finishing a quilt project and being totally done and then being able to snuggle with it. So this is one of the first tutorials that I've done, and I have to say I don't like making the tutorials as much as I like making actual projects with you guys and being a little bit more creative and artistic, because the tutorials, I just feel like I can't mess up. I feel like I have to really focus and get every step correct, and there's not so much creative energy going into these videos. So I don't know how many more tutorials I'm gonna do, but this was fine. But for the next video, let's do something more creative. I hope some of you all got something out of this video, and stick around for more creative projects to come. Until then, keep crafting, and I'll see you next time. Bye.